Welcome to the final episode of Building Solo, 4 Indian women who rewrote the rules. Over the past 3 weeks, you've heard from 𝗦𝗘𝗥𝗧, Monisha and Rupa, 3 women who walked away from corporate careers to build businesses that reflected who they actually are. Today, we close this series with Tista Sen, a dear friend and the person who introduced me to all 3 of these incredible women. Let's bring it home.
Social media is so segmented in terms of, while they might say we want social media, what they don't tell you is you need to do 40 pieces of film, okay? Because you asked and they never said it, they just took it for granted. But 40 pieces of content is like hell of a lot of content from you. You have a voice, you have a powerful voice. They just don't use it. Just learn to use it more often, I think.
True.
And you don't have to be loud and shout from the rooftops, but just say it. I think my first advice, which even I find hard to follow, is really to show up.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And to show up for any kind of gig which somebody's asked you for. Okay. And I absolutely don't mean in the networking sense. I mean, go listen to what's in store for you, because you will immediately know, and you will need a first meeting for that, whether you want to continue. And I also feel when you're when you're going solo, there's a lot of you investing in that relationship, and I'm calling it a relationship.
You just heard a taste of my dear friend Tista Sen's incredible journey from ad agency powerhouse to solo creative force. In this episode, we unpack the hidden cost of climbing the corporate ladder as a creative, why going solo means getting comfortable with the uncomfortable practice of thinking alone, and how simplicity, not strategy, might be your best branding decision. This is Unfiltered Solopreneur. I'm Nikhil. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Unfiltered Solopreneur. I'm your host, Nikhil Vaish, founder and CEO of Boost Solo. My next guest is a Cannes winner, the only Indian ever published in the New York Times Modern Love column, and not just one of India's most fearless creative voices, but also a dear friend who walked away from a 25-year agency career after realizing that the best story she could tell was her own, one fearless no at a time. Tista, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nikhil. Thank you. And really good to be here.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun, I know. It always is. So I love to dive right in. So I'm going to start by asking you about your love for storytelling, right? Now, you told me that began while you were working behind the scenes at White Light, which is a leading production house in India. So take me back to that moment. What did you see, hear, or feel working there that made you think, this is where I belong?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I think when I firstly did production, we were doing everything. So we didn't have like nowadays you have the stylist and the post person and somebody who just does the sets and fabric, but we were made to do everything. And I think I was really lucky in terms of who I was working with, because what Namita used to make us do, she was the director. She used to hand out the agency script to us before an agency meeting and just ask us to read it and tell her, what we felt about it. And, here we were just fresh from college. And I remember the one thing she and, of course, her partner Shubhi used to keep telling me is, what do you see? Don't just tell me a story. What do you see? Because, and I think right from there, and it's something I followed through my career and advice to my juniors is, don't just tell me an idea. What are you seeing? So I think that what do you see really mattered from it's a breakfast table and there's a curtain and the window is slightly ajar, because she forced us to see it. And that made us then, dovetail into the kind of set we wanted. What's on the table? Have they eaten breakfast? Like down to that kind of detailing. Is it unfinished? Is there a newspaper? Is there coffee? Why isn't there tea? And so every time we played back the script to her, we were too junior to mess around with the copy of the script, but we could definitely tell her like, oh God, this is the home I see. And I think she also had this thing where, we kept a folder of anything which kind of made sense for that film, which meant music, a swatch, swatches of cloth, a picture you've seen somewhere, because she wanted it to like live in our heads, because she was like, we should know the before and the after. Your commercial is only a small moment of their lives. So what do you think they did before and what do you think they did after?
Wow.
And I think that once upon a time storytelling, and I'm talking about visual storytelling because it's behind the camera. I think I think really that's the beginning of my how to tell a story, and why it's so important to have a beginning which you'll never see, a middle which is really your commercial, and really what happened when the commercial ended. Did they just go home or did they go their separate ways? So I think, yeah, that's where it began.
Yeah, I love that attention to detail. I feel like we sort of lost that in the world today, right? I mean, it's almost Scorsese-esque training that you just described to me. I remember someone telling me when I started that a 30-second ad is like an onion, and you unpeel every layer every time you see it, right? And it's usually after like 7 or 8 viewings that you actually get the depth and the substance of it. And of course, today everything is like, wham bam. It's like you don't get in the first 5 seconds, then it's like, of no value. So yeah, I
No,
totally
and
get that. Yeah.
yeah, and I also think advertising then was always about storytelling.
Yeah.
And 30 seconds is really, I mean, I take 30 seconds to answer a question right now. And when I think of how we told our stories along with the famous or infamous product window, because they had to be, you are selling a product at the end of the day. You're not doing just short films. But you only had 30 seconds. And I think that requires immense craftsmanship when I began to write, absolute clarity on what the idea is, along with what your client feels about your product. Because writing a 30-second commercial with the right spit and polish is really a science. It's not something that is a eureka moment. You have to keep at it till you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you invite the viewer on a journey, right? At least you used to. You weren't, like you said, you weren't just selling a product. Now, obviously, the end goal was to sell a product, but you sort of got them connected to the why and the how and the where, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. So the other thing you talked about really fascinated me was about your journey was that at 25, you were refusing briefs on moral grounds. You were calling out clients, speaking your mind, and nobody pulled you up for it. But somewhere along the way, that changed. You learned to curtsy, to nod, to watch your P's and Q's. So was there a specific moment that taught you to quiet down, or was it more of a slow erosion in the industry?
I think a couple of reasons. The fearless part of being 25 and thinking you own the world came from, well, being 25, where you thought you could do everything and more, and everything that seemed wrong needed to be called out. And I I think it also had to do with my ideologies, which actually shouldn't matter at work at all.
Yeah.
But my political beliefs, what I felt about, like, well, the world at large, and I felt a lot of things. And I remember uh, I never hesitated to, like, put it on the table when discussing either a product which I thought was absolutely wrong, or even talk about an idea which I felt was like actually, like, really regressive, and that's not what we should be doing. And the surprising thing is you were heard, and that's a really powerful feeling, because when somebody listens to you, and it doesn't matter whether you're wrong or right or whether you're a kid, is a really heady feeling, which actually then spurs you to do more.
Yeah.
And I think as I grew older and got promoted and had a larger team, and then an even larger team, and looking after big brands across the country and then the region, I think you start working with, you're a little removed, honestly, and I really miss those days, from the heart of the creative process, because now people are coming to you with work which you're supposed to build on,
Yeah.
otherwise they don't get a chance. And by then you're sucked into a bit of the client world, and you are part of some mancom where you know about P&Ls, and you know what's happening. And I think that's also what's happening to advertising, the pressure to be I would almost say deferential to your client, as opposed to being an equal and having a voice on the table. I think that fundamental partnership has really eroded over the years. and it's really more, you're just part of the supply chain. And when you're just one more cog in the wheel of their various other partners, then it becomes more about, we keep the business, or do we really air, what we feel? And I think that was becoming increasingly, the pressure of that was becoming more and more. So every year I got a new designation. I
Yeah.
became uh, like, more afraid, actually, and it should have been just the other way around, because of course, with great things come great responsibilities, but for a creative person, I think it should be just the opposite. As you get, a designation, you should be freer and you should be more fearless. And unfortunately, I think the way our agency is structured, and I believe that's across the world, you get, you're part of the hierarchy, and you're part of the business team, and there are many calls, to take, which are so-called business calls, as opposed to pure play, creative calls, and really being, or saying what you want to say. Having said that, it hasn't stopped me, but yes, it's far more. I've like bitten my lip and my tongue many times, rather than just speak my mind out and say, hey, you know what, this is not right, or this is wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that, because there's sort of more, excuse me, there's more to lose, right? So as you get sort of the stakes get bigger. But I want to probe on that a little more in terms of understanding if there's maybe even a little bit of an imbalance there, right? Because I remember you telling me a lunch ordering story, right? You had just presented a 5 crore campaign in a room full of men, your own team was there, the client stepped out, come back, loved the work, and then someone turns to you and says what?
Can you order lunch?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a story I say so often to young women in the industry, because, uh, and I think it's also so much to do with culture and being part
Mm.
of who we are. Because I think growing up in India, and in a patriarchal society, there's no running away from it. We are conditioned to be a certain way, behave in a certain way, act in a certain way. And while there is, tremendous pride in families for what you're doing, from, friends, and, what you achieved, even from clients, because you're dealing with a woman. But I think somewhere fundamentally, uh, you're still in charge of, like, carrying the tea tray,
Yeah.
and, serving the biscuit. So I think, and it also came upon me. It really crept upon me. It's not something I realized from day one. In fact, I didn't feel it at all when I was younger. I just thought this was an industry I loved, and like great people doing fantastic work, and all I had to do was really work hard, and honestly, well, be honest and my authentic self. And that's something I can say, which was hasn't always held me in good stead, but I haven't changed my persona to fit into the world. I made sure the world kind of like fitted around me, and that didn't go. But you are expected to be the, the brains behind the campaign, and at the same time, nobody thinks twice about even telling you that, hey, do the lunch bit, because it's so easy for you. I mean, the unsaid thing is, because you're a woman, it's easy for you to order, or but it's only then that you start realizing that, God, like, let me go back and think about these divisions, and what's really happening in the industry. Why is it that women are immediately given beauty brands and, sanitary protection, or, any, what I mean, like skin
Versus
and
tech.
moisturizer to work on?
Right.
And
Yeah.
when there's like a sexy Jeep or an automobile or Google, then the guys just it's just handed over to the guys. So it's very, it's so unconscious, even in an agency, as to, because nobody really talks about who's working on what. You kind of think somebody's picked you up to work on something because you're good, but then if you probe a little bit, you realize everywhere in your career you've been doing the pretty stuff. You've been doing happy families, and looking beautiful and feeling good about yourself and inner beauty, and it's all that. But what if I want to work on a SUV and I want to go shooting up in the mountains? No, that goes to the, your male counterpart instinctively. I mean, it's like, God, you don't even know anything about cars. But the truth is, there are women who who don't have kids, who do beautiful emotional work about children. So
Yeah.
it's this weird invisible line which
Mhm.
you figure out towards the end, that this is the kind of work I've done, and it's only when you kind of grow senior and you demand for it that you get working on the financial work, the banks, and stuff which it is so ridiculous that people assume you will not understand. But it's not because you don't understand, it's just that they automatically think you're better for suited for those kind of brands, whereas it should be absolutely equal, but it's not.
Yeah, no, you're very right, because I mean, and maybe I don't know what it says about me, but I had to work on sanitary napkins and chapped and cracked nipple cream, so maybe I was ahead of my time, or maybe I was just excluded from the male
No,
club.
no, but
But
was the creative team men or women?
absolutely all women, of course. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah,
that's what I
absolutely.
mean. It's
Yeah,
like because the account management team is still being the liaison between the two sides, but the women get it. The truth is, we even get like SIPs, and we even get the goddamn engine of whatever. But try us, because you don't automatically get an opportunity to work on brands like that.
but you're right though, because I mean, a man has not had. Never been asked, "Did you buy a CRM solution, or have you, ever worked on cloud computing?" Before they're given, the ability to work on tech. So there is definitely an imbalance, and I think you're right. It's sort of unconscious, because the
Yeah.
same thing happens at home, right? You can have a high-powered career. You come home, then you're expected to either cook dinner or put the kids to bed. But men are not always expected to do that. So
No, and I think during COVID, when we started doing all our calls from home, obviously, and I used to have a meeting every day with my team at 11. And that's when I realized how hard it is for women, because this is India. Everybody comes from very different kinds of back, and I don't mean economic backgrounds. I mean the family situation. You're in a
right.
joint family, you have a mother-in-law, your husband's working in the next room. These are homes in Bombay where everything is like, I mean, you're in like a little matchbox house. And the women had it so hard, because we could be doing a meeting, I can hear the pressure cooker going off, and
Right.
I can hear somebody's mother-in-law saying, like, now stop this nonsense and come and help us. And I realized, God, and the reason we missed work while everybody was like, of course, you're missing office, but it was because we just missed our escape. Because when
Yeah.
you're at home, you are just duty bound to do both. There is no choice. Whereas when you're physically away in office, you can just say, but I'm not there. But this is like you're here, so you can do this and that, and the kitchen sink, and you have to do it. And that's when you realize, even like working women and moms and wives and daughters have it. It's different. It's just different for us. Okay, I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm just saying it's different. And we have, I mean, I don't know when we'll ever catch up, because I don't remember any of my male colleagues with pressure cooker noises. In fact, they were like, my wife's cooking something really good today, and I was like, oh my God, I have to do that at my house. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. COVID did lay that bare a little bit, right? Because
Yes,
you
yes.
literally
I was
saw
like,
that.
I mean, apart from like work from home, there was this huge expose which I remember I wanted to do about, really, these are the women you work with, but this is their home situation and this is what they do.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the flip side is, every time the man does laundry once, or washes the dishes, they expect like a parade to
No,
say,
it's a
"Wow, look what you did."
celebration. I remember, I know. And again, it's just the way we've all been conditioned. So
Yeah,
it's like a big story if somebody's mopping. And I remember that used to be the beginning of our conversations, like the guys like saying, oh my God, today I've had to do like sweep the floor. And like no shit, we do it every day, but I
right.
mean, we don't have a meeting about it.
Yeah, exactly. Or have a ticker tape to parade when it's done. So,
Yeah,
no, I
like,
know, and I've been
been
guilty
there,
of that
done
too.
that, and bought the t-shirt. Yeah, yeah.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. Now, before you went solo, you started Ladyfinger, right? Which was India's first all women backed agency. It was backed by a larger agency, right? Now it got a lot of media attention. It was a big splash, and then you said publicly that it failed. Now most people would hide from that failure. You announced it loudly. So what happened, and more importantly, what did you learn from it?
So the first thing I learned was that I think everybody thought the idea was great, but very few people believed in it except for me. Because the notion of an all women agency, and people told me that, why do you even want to do that? I mean, you're because it's talent after all, and how does it talent has no gender. But my whole point was that unfortunately in India, talent has always had a gender, and there have been so many dropouts for really talented women because of motherhood or responsibilities, or following your husband when he has a transfer. But the talent hasn't gone away. The women don't have the opportunity. And I also felt, and this is working from an agency, that women are the biggest decision makers right now. And I'm not talking again about uh, beauty products. I'm talking about real estate. The I met this real estate guy who told me because of the higher divorce rate, women are buying apartments on their own. That's a huge financial independence, massive India story. But all real estate ads talk to the father, and of course, sometimes there's a wife and two children in the corner. So there was this whole generation, and I believe there is, of women who are, like badass, sassy, doing well. They've chosen not to marry. Some have chosen to have a marriage but have no children. They're staying in separate cities because of their career. It's no longer the traditional, family setup that we were exposed to.
Right.
Most of them earn maybe more than their husbands, and these are really, like I said, badass corporate women, and they're in every sphere. It's not just like the corporate sector; it's in finance, banking, advertising, like everywhere. And I figured that nobody's really talking to them.
Yeah.
We're still talking to what we think is a primary breadwinner, because he is taking the decisions and he is the father and he is the male in the family. And you've just kind of ignored her. And I felt if brands really talk to her in the way she wants to be spoken to, not talking down to her, not talking to her like you're empowering her. I hate that word empowering. Who are we to empower other women? But like, because you get her, you know,
Right.
that would be a great story to tell, and that would be something we did. I think what didn't work was, firstly, I think my stupid decision to be part of a larger network,
Yeah.
because the minute you do that, willy nilly, you get sucked into the larger issues. And I had very little time to really, create what I wanted to do and be true to why I began what I began. And I found myself very often actually doing the other work, which was definitely not what I wanted to do.
Right.
That's not why I wanted to start Ladyfinger. So I'm very grateful I had the opportunity, and I'm very grateful that there was an idea on the table somebody believed in. But I learned very quickly that a yes doesn't mean a yes all the way through. At some time, it's going to come back to like a P&L conversation and the business, and unfortunately, I am the business head as well. I didn't have a business partner. I thought I could do it. So I did try it for a while, and then I realized, uh, after like, I'm having huge imposter syndrome. Like, maybe I should just do this on my own because it's still my vision. It's still my baby. I might not have it right on the name. I didn't want to get into any kind of issue on that. But what if I really started off and did the kind of work I really want to do with the people I really want to work with, and really work with a bunch of women who I really want to work with without making a noise about it. And that's really how I started. Tista Things, it's my name, and it was my Insta handle, so it was simple. I didn't want to now spend time on a name and a
Yeah.
logo,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be like effortless, and because I wanted, and I still want, a working environment which is like easy peasy and honest.
Yeah.
And I'm also very hands on, so I can't take on crazy amounts of work because I want to sit with the client across the table. I want to listen. I want to go to the factory. I want to do all the things I haven't done in the last like maybe 20 odd years. And But that's the kind of homework I want to do before I start putting work out. I don't want to do art for art's sake. And I'm still like obsessed with women issues, and we have a lot of issues in our country. So even working with nonprofits in whatever capacity to help them on their journey,
Yeah.
I'm really up for it. And I think finally finally, and it's hard and it's lonely, but maybe I'm now just beginning to find what I really have been looking for so many years.
Yeah, no, all of that makes a lot of sense, and you're right. Sometimes it's like, you have like you said, it's your baby, right? And you have to, you have to birth that vision and bring it to life without any sort of structure or corporate structure or strings attached. Because, like you said, it's, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's just when you have, when you're operating within a larger structure, like you said, there are things that come with it, and there are
No, no,
responsibilities that are
absolutely.
layered on, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
No,
sometimes you're just ahead of your time too, right? I mean, that can also happen. But I do believe that it is a large and untapped market, and I think more brands are sort of waking up to that realization slowly.
yeah, very slowly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you touched on a lot of different things there. I want to come back and talk about your name. I also want to talk about, the nonprofit piece and balancing sort of that with profit work. But before that, I want to ask you to again just sort of take me back to that decision after wrapping up Ladyfinger and going fully solo. Now this was just you, no safety net. You went from having, many people to fall back on to having nobody. So what did the first 30 days actually look like and feel like? And what surprised you most about being on your own?
Okay, so I was like what should I say? Absolutely batshit crazy, petrified to begin with. I mean, that's the truth. And I was pretty much a nervous wreck because this is the one thing I'd never done. I've done everything else. Okay. And I would never walk away from like a tough assignment or a tough brief. But here I was walking away from like really kissing my career goodbye and saying you're on your own now. And but I think what really worked for me, Nikhil, is I did believe that I was onto something, and if and I wanted to work with people who believed in that as well.
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate that that happened just organically. So uh, the minute I said I've left and I'm on my own, and it doesn't work all the time, and I'll tell you why for big and large companies, because they want you to have like an army and a
Mhm.
department. It kind of is counterproductive because they want you to be with them, but at the same time, they need to know that you have a social media department and you can do this and you can do that. I can't. I'm just alone. But I can do, if I'm interested and you're interested, I can do what you want. I
Yeah.
also found that I was really interested in doing packaging, which I was like aghast at myself.
Yeah.
But that instinctively, so then I could choose who I wanted to work with depending on what the project is. I discovered I love writing. I'd
Mhm.
forgotten
How
how
much
much
you loved
joy
it.
there is to put pen on paper and actually start writing, thinking, ideating, and doing it alone. I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of talk about, like minds and brainstorms and partnerships, and I've come from that school of thought. But I think I've reached a stage where I want that to come a little later. I want to brainstorm when I have my thinking straight. I think the pressure of putting people in a room and saying we're locking you up and by 6 o'clock in the evening come out with an idea. You're all great minds and you will come up with something. But I think that little difference is if that little quiet time where I'm actually thinking for myself
Yeah.
and I'm not constantly banging ideas, with somebody. And that is so alien to how we work because, there's an art and copy partnership, then teams are put together, then you have pitch teams put together. And I always marvel at these arranged marriages, which are supposed to like spawn a fetus in a couple of hours because you've literally put crazy people in a room together, don't know each other. So that's the arrangement. They're forced to have like maybe well consensual sex and they have to deliver. I mean, there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
Whereas I wanted to do my own thinking first. And I also I'm a little crazy. I like to do the research. So like I said, I'd like to go and see the factory. I can't remember. I don't think everybody does. Why would you want to see the factory? And I have clients telling me we'll send you videos and we'll send you photographs. And I'm like, no, I want to go and I want to see the bottle. I want to see the oil. I want to feel what it looks like. And I think it's brought back a lot of the beginning of my career, which was just the joy of like creating stuff, which is thought through. which is not just a flash in the pan. And what I really love about advertising is the science behind it,
Yeah.
curiously enough, because it's and I keep saying it's not art for art's sake. I'm finally in the business of growing brands. And so fundamentally, if my thinking and my solo thinking is linked to how a brand can do better, and there are so many mediums now to operate in, I just enjoy that whole shift in the way I approach work,
Yeah.
as opposed to everything I used to do earlier. So it's also very lonely because you've got to take all decisions on your own. It's also hard because I had to learn how to use Excels. And I mean, I've never done that in my life, I swear. And I've always been like, God, you Excel people. So I had to become an Excel person.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to write a proposal. I've
Hmm.
had to learn how to, yeah, of course, with the calculator, but my math has to be pretty good if I need to like pay other people.
Yeah.
And there've been a lot of hits and misses, but I've done it all on my own. And I mean, that's something I can, so I know every little comma and full stop and apostrophe. It's not something I'm not what should I say? I'm not farming the work out. I'm actually farming it to myself. And then maybe I'm farming it to someone to help me execute it. But it's mine and I own
Yeah.
it. And I think because I own it, I'm bet I'm in a better place to sell it. I'm in a better place to convince somebody about it because it's really all me. It's not 100 people that have pooled into what I'm doing. It's
Yeah.
just me. And I think one-on-one interaction is like paramount. I just met a client this morning and I was like, telling him that, you might get tired of me, but I'm going to be the face you're going to see because the others are going to be working with me, but it's me. And he told me that it's been years since he's heard a senior creative person tell him that, well, I'm sorry, but you'll be seeing me, because he said, I don't get to see them ever after we start the business. And I want
Yeah.
to change all that because I enjoy it. I really do.
Yeah.
And if the CMO or the CEO can make time for you in an agency, then there's no reason why the senior most person in the agency can't, make that time, because finally it's their business and it's their money. So yeah, things like that.
Yeah, but that's how the agency model works, right? I mean, it's like you're billing the overheads they carry have to be paid for, right? Which is some frustration I reached to before I
Yeah.
left. And also, I love something you said earlier, which is I call it the gestation period. And that was my greatest discovery after leaving Ogilvy. Was like, wow, I have this time to think by myself, right?
Yeah.
Now, you're right. There is a time and place for the whiteboard and for the brainstorming and coming together of ideas. But there's a beautiful moment where you just let things simmer and sort of like, it's like that pressure cooker, you know, as I mean, opposed to the pressure cooker where you're putting people in a room and you're waiting for the whistle to go off. Here,
Yeah.
you've actually got some time to think, with your thoughts, whatever you end up doing. And I always feel like you end up at a better place as
Yeah.
a result of that. That's what I found. And to me, that was a big revelation. And I've, that's something I still enjoy.
No,
And
I
yeah,
and now that you mentioned it, I'm thinking about artists and musicians and songwriters. I mean, there's no artist who says, let's sit and brainstorm about of my. I mean, it's his or her vision. When you're
yeah,
writing poetry or even a book, it's a story in your head. And of course, we're in the business of selling brands. I mean, we're in advertising. But if you are getting intimate with the brand, then you better get intimate with yourself and be brave enough to, force your mind and your imagination to go into places which normally you wouldn't go to, because there are three other places who'd build on the first idea you had. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
I think that's the other thing I figured is, um, when you're working with a group of people, they're so eager to say yes to you and then build upon what you have. And I used to keep thinking, it might not be the best idea at all on the table, but there's nobody challenging me or saying, let's be quiet and think about it. It all used to happen so quickly. You have an idea, somebody builds on it. And I love what you spoke about. You know, there is a time when you need to get into your own head, with everything, the what's and all, but just to do your own, like, thinking in your mind. And our minds do have minds of their own. So it's good to spend some time with, in quiet with your mind. I think it's lovely.
Yeah, it is. And, like you said, there is definitely loneliness too. But I think this is one of the beautiful things, actually, of, and I love how you said that's true. I never did Springsteen say, let's have a brainstorming and and then let's sit down and have focus groups to understand if, whatever Born to Run is going to actually do well and resonate with people. But there is an element of that, right? But then again, same with authors, then there is an editor involved later, there is feedback, and there is more sort of like sharing and bringing together the scaffolding, if you like. But
Yeah.
that initial period, yeah, I think you hit on something which is of real value to solopreneurs. So the other thing I wanted to ask you now in terms of branding, right? You're just Tista. You mentioned a few minutes ago that it was sort of more laziness than sort of sitting down and strategizing that led you to the name. But there's something powerful about simplicity, right? So for solopreneurs who are agonizing about how to position themselves, how to name themselves, what would you tell them?
So, I think the first thing is that you need a name, and that
Yeah.
hunt for a name becomes like everything. And I think it really depends also on the industry you are in. I think for me, and I met like my ex CEO before, when I was doing it entirely on my own. And even when I did Ladyfinger, he told me that, why do you need a name? You're the brand, okay? And I think we forget, as creative people, especially because the value you put on the table is so disregarded, and and so taken for granted. And he said, if I'm coming to you, I'm coming because you're working behind it. So how about just talking about it? And I was like, are you crazy? You need a name. And I kind of like Ladyfinger. It's quirky, and I know I wanted to be a little whimsical, and that's the kind of person I am. And then when I decided to go solo, I was like, people were like, now avocado. And oh God, I was the butt of so many jokes with people saying, yeah, what did somebody else tell me? Some other disgusting vegetable. And they were like, oh God, now you can be like anything you want and you can change the name of the vegetable. And then I was like, God, this is crazy, because do I want to be avocado? No, it was not about the vegetable. And what is going to be my calling? That it's really going to be me you're going to see, like hate, dislike, interact with. And it's really going to be my thinking on the table, with, of course, a team. It's not that I do everything on my own at all, but it's essentially me. And if I
Yeah.
have to have any difference between me and any other creative boutique, and they're like such talented people out there, but I'd rather, like, back front foot on really me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and on one hand, it sounds so stupidly ridiculous that I've called my outfit Tista things. And of course, it is my Twitter handle and my Insta handle. So it was just easy. But the truth is, it's really me thinking. So it was just like, it just kind of came together. And oh God, I've had like a lot of memes on Tista drinks and Tista sinks and Tista. You know how people are. And this, I mean, memes by like friends and family who love me, but
Right.
everybody can't help, like, like passing some lupit type, snide thing about Tista. Yeah, well, unfortunately, you can just think of Tista drinks now. But yeah, there's even been what is it? I mean, it's crazy, but it's simple. I have a really simple logo, and I think, I like that. I love that kind of. It's not an alliteration, but I love the TNT, and I love the
Mhm.
fact that these are things kind of like. Uh, I'm a big fan of things that sound nice more than look nice, and there's something nice about the cadence of it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go with that. And it didn't take me. I mean, I really took about like a day to think about it, and I was like, okay, here it is.
Yeah, and I love the name. And again, it goes to not overthinking things. I think there's power in simplicity. So, if you hadn't told me, I was like, wow, that's such a cool name. And I'm looking forward to seeing Tista drink and sing in a few days, uh, which are going to happen.
Yeah,
But
drink and sing. Yeah, you got the
yeah,
order right. Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah. And so, but what's interesting to me is the naming thing. I don't, and I'm not trying to settle the debate here, because but as you were talking, you just talked about sort of like the confidence, and like you're working with me, and this is my, I'm at the table versus 10 feet away, or the bait and switch of like the senior team at the pitch. But there's also an element, I think, that, and this may be subconscious, right? That when you have a brand, like if you're working on an IBM and an Apple, the rejection is less personal, right? So if you have a name, then maybe there's this feeling as a solopreneur, because otherwise it's really personal, right? When a client turns you down or throws out a proposal, or like you feel like you're being rejected, and maybe the name is a little bit of a band-aid, right? Now, I never thought about that before, but I wonder
Oh
if
gosh.
it has to do with the evolution of your confidence as a solopreneur. And I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but it was just
That's so
something.
interesting, and it's I'm not even thought about it, but of course the work is very personal, and the work is always personal. Actually, I mean, if you're truly being true to an insight and look back into your own life, and we've just had Piyush's memorial on Sunday, so there's been so much about going back to your childhood and making everything real and making it about well, true things in a sense. And rejection is something we get used to. We're so hardened by rejection,
Yeah.
in an agency, that even now, God, I've not thought about it, but yeah, maybe it's just creating that little, giving me my little, well, proximity to like face things like, like head on. And oh gosh, yeah, you've given me something now more to think about or worry about, as the case may be.
Or maybe not. And maybe I'm just overthinking it or like psychoanalyzing it. But it's just interesting because because there's no right or wrong, right? That you can
Yeah.
have a company name, or you can, and so I advise people typically to use their own name, even
Oh,
though I have not followed my own advice, which is my biggest weakness, but that's okay. I would say do as I do, do as I say, don't do as I do. So now you worked on some of the most memorable campaigns in India, right? Campaigns that live in people's hearts and minds. Now you're seeing clients who are focused on data, metrics, ROI. And you even told me people are asking you to replicate work you did 25 years ago. So what's been lost in this obsession with measurement, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but the obsession, I think, is sort of weighing down on the industry. And do you feel like brands can get it back?
I think we've all become so safe
Yeah.
in our thinking, in our writing, in our ability to create, because safety is like this nice little, cotton wool cocoon, which is, you can't you can't be very good, you can't be very bad. You're somewhere in the middle. And I think clients have a huge responsibility there as well, because the truth is nobody knows. And maybe 20 years ago, when you were brave enough to take a punt on it because you couldn't afford to, the way the business is going right now, and with people tracking everything you do, it's so easy to kill something and diss something rather than really be brave enough to try something new.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that work is measured, by the way.
Mhm.
I like the fact that clients say this particular thing is doing better than that because, and there are, it's data that's proving me right. I'm not talking about research about an idea. I'm talking about which is finally doing well.
Yeah.
And I like that they can track that, and it's easy, and it's pretty, what is the word? It's, what is it? Qualitative, quantitative. What is the word? It's like, uh,
Quantitative. Yeah.
yeah, data, which is something you can't mess with in that sense.
Yeah.
And in a sense, I feel as creative people, finally, and I always say that we still come second. We're not first. It's still the client's brand and business, and we do come second. So if there is anything that's telling you that this is doing better or this is doing slightly worse or this is doing the best, then I really respect that, because that's really my job. My job is to do work with cells, but my job is not to do and recreate safe advertising, which was done 40 years ago, 20 years ago. No, I haven't been working for that long. But people are so afraid in this new kind of, I don't know, times we live in, to even try anything which hasn't been tried and tested before. Um, which, I mean, clients have access to the same tools creative people have access to. I mean, they can do an ad. They don't
Yeah.
need you. So in a world where you're not needed, and I'm not talking about ageism or relevance, I'm just talking about your talent pool. If your talent pool isn't adding that extra value that I can do, which my clients can't do, then there is really no conversation around the table. So for everybody who is playing it very safe and being a conformist, the thing is, because there's a machine also that's ratifying what they're doing, by the way. And I do believe, and that's the kind of work I'm doing with people who still believe that you need to take a leap. There is something called a gut instinct, and there is something called, a creative thought. It doesn't always have to be well ironed and smoothened and wrinkle free. It's meant to be a little, well, upside down sometimes, but that's why it works. And fortunately, yeah, there are many who think like that. So I try and then work with those people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think David Ogilvy, and I might make a hash of this quote, once said that data should be used for illumination and not the way a drunkard uses a lamp post, right? To lean on it. So that's the difference, right? And I think that is where I feel like there's, like you said, it's more used as a way to protect yourself
Yeah,
from taking risks, or
yeah,
saying that, rather than the way you just described it, which is let it illuminate what we're doing and help us make it better, but don't shy away from taking risks and falling flat in your face at the same time. And that is the piece I feel like we've lost everywhere in the world in the industry, right? Because I mean, and to be fair, when we started, the pendulum was the other side, right? We couldn't measure shit, so it was all gut based. And but I will say, we did have data then too, right? Like you just mentioned, you would go to the factory, you look at the product, you would kind of go do what we call those vox pops we used to do, I remember.
yeah,
You'd
yeah,
go and talk to people at quality ice cream stand before you launch that. And even with levers, like the first thing they made you do as an account person was go with the sales team
yeah,
and sell into stores and watch how they do that, right? But and that was data to me, right? Really valuable data. And I feel like now we're restricted to spreadsheets and measuring social, and we've sort of lost that touching, feeling component that you just mentioned is what you want to go back to and what you're really enjoying about the work now as a solopreneur.
yeah,
So, okay. Well, so the other thing I wanted to ask you was, now you mentioned the Excel, right? Like when you first went solo, you had to learn Excel, you had to learn all these new skills. But you also said something interesting, which is that you're really enjoying becoming this 25-year-old again, right? Who was learning to do all these different things on her own. So talk to me a little bit about that, and tell me also, did handling all of this new business mechanics, if you like, dull your creative edge, or has it actually sharpened it?
Oh my God. So I think, and that is like at least the maximum I live by, which is, there has to be a little bit of newness every day, and I really believe in that, and it has to be really little things, because you can't have a new thing every day. But if it means, I don't know, I just decide to have a coffee with my dad. It could be as simple as that. Or, maybe discuss the headlines with my dad, who's like 92, and I think he would love a discussion on what's happening. But I love this element of new, because I think without new, we would be like dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's the newness that keeps us going on. And I mean new about everything. I mean about new emotions, new well technology. I'm fascinated by new tech, uh, you know, uh, new music, new words with which, like, I mean, which I'm unfamiliar with, like a new whole vocabulary with Gen whatever is using alpha, whatever they call it, and figuring out like yeah, new ways to swear maybe. So I think the learning again wasn't that much of a, oh my God, I'm going back to school, as much as I've got this and I can do it on my own. I mean, why did I need 20 people earlier to do it? And why the hell didn't I do it on my own earlier? And there is something really, again, and it's about being alone. When you, maybe it's a bit like studying for an exam. When you studied and you sit for the paper and you can answer, you've had a good, I mean, you never do a paper not knowing, like, either which way, whether you're going to do well or not. When you people say, oh, it was a good paper. So I like that it was a good paper feeling, where if I learn a little bit about it, then I can talk about it and hey, I can do it. And for me, that's like, the paper went well after an exam, because for me it's new. And again, I'm not trying to sound, very like, I don't want to make this sound like, oh my God, this is so like, poetic and I'm learning something new. But I do believe if I decide to learn, operate mid journey or some new AI tool, it's just a great learning for me. And it's fascinating. It's not something I've not done it, and I don't even approach work actually with the feeling of hopelessness, as
Yeah.
opposed to, oh my god, I have to do this, as opposed to, shit, why didn't I do this before? And can I really learn a little bit something from it? And I do believe if you listen to clients carefully and really try and understand their business, there is no way you're not going to have some kind of, well, epiphany from them, because that's their business. I mean, they know their business inside out. And but it's really about how carefully you are listening, as opposed to how much are you talking,
Yeah.
and my god, now when I work with the same clients who I worked with earlier as part of an agency, and they tell me like, oh God, you're allowing us to talk, because, you agency people come in and then you just take over. And before we know it, the meeting's over and we haven't even spoken because, because, there'll be this team and that team, and the planners have put up their 100 slides, and then we come in and then we are lecturing. And I mean, they know their business. They don't need to be lectured by us. And now it's such joy to be able to say, like, I literally have a gag order. So you guys talk. And then
Yeah.
they're like, "Are you going to say something?" And I'm like, "No, I want to listen." So it's all new, and I think the newness is what makes it interesting, and the newness is what makes it, well, absolutely, like, so much joy actually for me.
Yeah, and you're right, because even when I first started, I found it a little bit daunting, right? Because I mean, math has never been my strong suit. So Excel spreadsheets sort of give me the willies. But now it's like I realized it fires different synapses in my brain, right? And it brings more to the core work that I do. Now, no one's saying you have to go and become an accountant, like to become a
No.
solopreneur, but you have to have a certain level of basic competence. Like
Yeah.
you said, you know all the I's and T's of your business, right? You need to know if you're profitable, if you're not, where your
Yeah.
money's coming, where it's going. So
Yeah.
you need to know the basics. But I think it generally helps you even with the thing that you're most passionate about, right? It's almost these peripheral things. And we sort of lose that in the corporate world, right? Again, it was a revelation to me after leaving. Because
Yeah.
again, now the only person I can pick up the phone and call is myself, like you said. There's really nobody else to call. It's like, I got to get the invoice done. Shit. Okay, I got to do the invoice. Yeah. So I maybe at some point I'll end up with split personalities, but for now it's working pretty well. So we talked about clients sort of loving that, right? I want to ask you a little bit about people who are starting out. This is a struggle they always have. You've gotten really good at knowing which clients to say no to. But now that's a skill we've both had to learn over many years, right? So someone who's just starting out who needs the work, what advice would you give them? What are sort of the early warning signs in that first email or phone call that signal that this client's going to be either difficult or a nightmare?
So I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing. Firstly, it's not even smooth sailing for me. There's a lot of, and I don't think I could write a guidebook on red flags, like a relationship. I mean, you really don't see the red flags at all. So for me, what is important while starting out any project, or any assignment I'm doing, is to be really clear and put on the table what my expectations are, and do they match their expectations. And don't wait for the 10th meeting to bring up, but I always assumed that this was going to be done,
Right.
because there's so much I realize we take for granted from both sides of the table, even
Mhm.
from the client saying, but I thought it was always, and then I'm like, oh shit, it's my fault, I didn't mention it. So for me, if you're doing things alone, like, write it down. There's no harm in writing down. You can write down your supermarket list, you can write down your to-do list for the client, but ask and clarify every single point, because what you don't want is somewhere in the middle of a project, when you've killed yourself, to discover that you actually didn't speak about, like, I don't know, so many iterations and changes, or you didn't talk about music rights, and then you're paying out of your own pocket. And that is and that does take some learning. So
Yeah.
I've literally, like, you keep like a checklist. Before I do a generic checklist, where I now automatically know these are things I must clear even before I do a proposal, leave alone, because because social media is so segmented in terms of, while they might say we want social media, what they don't tell you is you need to do 40 pieces of film, okay?
Yeah.
Because you asked and they never said it, they just took it for granted. But 40 pieces of content is like hell of a lot of content from you. So I go back to my basic thing, which is in the first meeting, be the annoying person who asks those annoying questions. It's
Yeah.
okay. Wear a tattoo annoying on your forehead because you need to know, and do and get the annoyance out of the way, because you don't want to feel annoyed with each other 3 months down when you realize that both of you are chasing different things. Because in our business, and especially I think when creative people are starting a business, and because we don't instinctively think like that, like, I've never had to think of uh, you know
Red flags.
I
Right.
haven't thought of like deliverables, and
Oh, right.
how do you cost for it, because there's somebody else doing it for me. I'm just doing the work, I don't
Yeah.
care about
Yeah.
that. But suddenly it's become very crucial, and there's a world of a difference between uh, you know uh, like I said, 10 and 15 posts make it like 15 different ideas for me. I hate doing repetitive stuff, but people just assume because it's social media, I do 10 or 15. The attitude is so, what should I say, cavalier towards these things. So I ask, and I know they get irritated because I do tell them 3 months down the line, are you going to do new work, or is there going to be a phase two? And very often, when I ask the annoying question, I'm surprised because they haven't thought of it themselves. And they said,
Right.
and then we both realized that, oh, okay, because it would be awful to figure it out, 3 months down the line, that you were automatically expected to do a new campaign, whereas you thought it was the same thing running through. Yeah, so be the annoying person in the room. It might work. You might get people who say, oh God, I can't imagine working with you. You're so annoying. How will we ever work? It's fine. There will be people who you will be, at least you'll be clear as to what you're doing. And I really insist on that. That's what I follow, at least.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's really good advice because you don't want the relationship to derail halfway through, and so much is lost in, especially in today's communication, right? Because it's happening over WhatsApp or email and conversations in person, online, and so to be on the same page, I agree with you. That is really important because most people end up making assumptions because they're too scared to ask 3 or 4 times. So I think that's really that is makes a lot of sense to me. So again, I want to sort of change gears a little bit now. Now you've co-founded the collective as a voice for young women facing discrimination and gender inequality, I believe, right, in advertising. Now you're trying to understand why 70% of women are leaving. Now I will say there's a little bit of irony because you left too. So my question is, do you think the industry is fixable, or is the future more women going solo?
Um, so I'm so my concern is really young girls not wanting to work in the industry anymore.
To
Okay,
start?
which
Yeah.
for me is like a big red flag. Um, as opposed to them leaving to do something on their own. All right, and uh, I mean, is it fixable, Nikhil? Is like, I don't know. It just seems like a really daunting question right now, because
Yeah.
um, I want to know. I, I mean, we've tried to figure out the why, and the whys are pretty much what's been around forever. It's just that it's more obvious now because women do have a voice and do have access to many other platforms where, they can hear other people. We're no longer in a little bubble floating in some third world country. We know what's happening in the world. We know about, inequality. We know about IND. It's all there. And so I love the fact that young women are not taking any BS. I think that's
Yeah.
fabulous. What I hate is that agencies are still, you know, um, what should I say, dispersing BS.
Yeah.
And those things haven't changed in terms of maternity, in terms of, your promotion, in terms of, but, oh, you're just married, you have a baby right now. There's absolute no-nos, and it shouldn't matter. And working hours, like I told you, my COVID thing about realizing that, okay, I have it good because I have somebody at home to help me with the housework, and I'm really blessed. But all these women are struggling to do everything on their own. So in terms of work, it's sometimes just easy to late nights, like we work. You don't have to work late nights. You pick up your bag at 5:30 and leave, and not worry about, like, the management taking a look at you, or your boss feeling something's wrong with you. So so I get, so as I said, it's a little dichotomy. I love that they know their minds. I hate that the industry is not making it more a joyful place that they want to be in, because that's what
Yeah.
it has been for me, and I think all the women of my generation. We love the work. We loved the late nights because we felt we like belonged. I think in today's industry, you are made to feel that you're a little bit on the periphery of things. And maybe it's because everything is wanted yesterday, and there's a certain dog eat dog kind of attitude in terms of, even will you be able to work 5 nights in a row? No, nobody can do that. Even I couldn't do it. But have I spent all nighters in the office? We all have, when we've had a pitch, and we've all done that. But that's seeming to become more of the everyday and not the exception.
Yeah.
And it's very hard when you have homes to go back to, or kids to deal with. It's because the onus is on you. And so anything to do with where we can make it, or even talk to people about giving them, or making it more pay something, which has like been debated so often. I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah.
But maybe creating places where women want to work in, or cultures where people think they have a future, where they can thrive, where they can be free to speak their mind, and really know that in the future, 30 years later, I can have a seat on the table. That's the other thing that's alarming women, because if they look ahead, there are not very many women left.
No.
So
Yeah.
who is your which role model, or what role model are you going to be like following? Because there are very few of them left right now,
Yeah.
so it's a lot of things coming together. And when collective began, it really began because of Me Too. And that was the genesis of it, because we wanted to do something about it. We didn't realize how embedded it was in the industry, because it's something obviously nobody talks about, or rather everybody talks about it, but not to you. And that's really how it began. We've been very, very slow, because we can't change policy. We
Yeah.
can't change network policies. But we are open, and we still talk to the women who get in touch with us. And I feel it's becoming like this large sisterhood of women who can give you advice, from career to job negotiations to difficulties at home, work-life balance, motherhood. It's becoming a bit of everything else, and I'm quite happy about that, because we were never meant to be just you know um, like a sexual harassment portal. We were never that.
Mhm.
And uh, and I think women like to have other women who've been there to talk to, as opposed to always it becoming like an HR or network problem,
Yeah.
because we pretty much had the same kind of journey. So what did we do? How did we navigate it? How can we help now? Can we talk to? We When we began collective, we've gone and spoken to agencies saying, can you introduce this? And they've all been very, very receptive. But again, we don't have a backing behind us. It's just purely, voluntary, and it's purely based on our assumption that, well, we want to make the world a better place. But we need agencies to really buy into the concept, because finally we are one of them.
Yeah, no, no. It's interesting though, because it made me think of, when we chatted earlier, we talked about how maybe when we worked at Lintas, it felt like there were more senior women there at the time. And it's interesting. So account management, like Usha, planning, creative. I just realized there were not any senior women though. Right, that was one department that didn't have a lot of right
Yeah,
at the top. Right,
yeah.
there were, you know,
No,
not CMO level. I mean, not CCO level, right?
I think
There
you're
were
right.
not.
The board was all men.
Yeah,
And I remember there was this woman who told me that you girls are so lucky to work in Lintas, because you have a board of eligible, they were all bachelors for some strange reason. They said that you have a board of all bachelor men, and they're all in advertising, and y'all can like hook up with anybody. I was like, God, they just like no, but there were no women.
no, not on the board. But it felt like there were more women in the industry though at the time for some reason. I don't know if that was just an anomaly or
I think Lintas kind of spoiled
yeah,
me at least then, because if you looked at media and photography, films, there was Kavita, there was client
right.
servicing. I had
U-
women nurses,
Usha,
Madhu, Lata,
Nidhi,
Annie, and
Lata, Madhu,
so
yeah,
I never felt that that this wasn't the way it's meant to be.
yeah,
It's only when I moved out I realized that, God, like Lindas was like so fantastic, because I think And I think that's why I come back to agency culture. I think it is the singularly most important thing in the world. And people don't just get it, because in agency culture doesn't just create the best work, it creates the best people, the best working environment. It is the reason why people want to stay. And you have to have, those people well with you, and take them with you through good times and bad. And that's really, I think, what Lintas used to be then, when, well,
Yeah.
at least when we started out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it was an anomaly, right? Because you're right.
It is. It
I just
doesn't
thought that
exist.
was the way it was, and then I went to London, I went to New York, and that was not the way it was anyway.
I
So
don't have this Bombay connection with. I work in JW for 20. Of course, I make close friends, but are we 7 or 10 people who kind of get each other? And no way,
yeah,
no way. And it's really rare, and it's really special. It doesn't. It's not that I've got 20 groups with like different colleagues at different agencies or different people who I've gelled with. No, I made great friends along the way, but we are this motley starting off crew who kind of like, in it does matter. And I think it's the agency that, and Bombay 3 that allowed us to, like, to flourish and become like one entire. We were one team.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, one for all and all for one in
yeah.
many ways. Yeah. So, so to the women who are sitting and listening to this podcast right now, who are just maybe starting out, you said they're not joining the industry, and especially women who've been conditioned to say yes, to be agreeable, to not rock the boat. What's your advice? How do they find their voice?
Uh, no, they have a voice.
Yeah,
My advice would be just to use it.
yeah,
And you have a voice, you have a powerful voice. Uh, they just don't use it. Just learn to use it more often, I think.
true.
And you don't have to be loud and shout from the rooftops, but just say it. Because in a room of 10, even if two people listen, it's the beginning. And don't get intimidated by levels and hierarchy and what other people will think, because people will always think probably the worst of you. But really, just say it. Call it out. Firstly, say it, and use the voice you have, because somebody will listen.
Yeah, no, I love what you said. You said you have a voice, use it, right? You don't have to find it.
No.
It's already there. You just
Yeah.
need to use it. So I
Yeah.
stand corrected. That you're right. So for 2 years now, you're 2 years into this, right? And you're still sort of figuring things out. You mentioned to me you're exploring nonprofit work, sort of discovering that you love packaging design of all things, even asking yourself, will I go back in 6 months, right? So for solopreneurs who are also in that I don't have it figured out yet phase, how do you give yourself permission to explore? And if we were to meet 3 years from now, what would you make you think, yes, this was the right path?
So I feel, I think my first advice, which even I find hard to follow, is really, to show up.
Yeah,
That's the first thing. And to show up for any kind of gig which somebody's asked you for. Okay. And I absolutely don't mean in the networking sense. I mean, go listen to what's in store for you. Because you will you will immediately know, and you will need a first meeting for that, whether you want to continue. And I also feel, when you're when you're going solo, there's a lot of you investing in that relationship, and I'm calling it a relationship. So your first meeting should pretty much tell you whether you want that kind of investment. And I'm not even talking about money. I'm talking about, do I want to spend the next 3 months, in this guy's, well, armpit? I'm being gross, but it literally is that. I mean, it's going to get as messy as that. And I pretty much need to be aligned somewhere and be on the same wavelength to say that, okay, this is somebody I can like vibe with and, like work with. But if you don't show up, you'll never know. So I used to be the on the call deciding that I'm not interested. Thank you very much, but I'm not really interested. And then I realized that, God, I'm being how stupid, because I haven't spoken to them. I don't know what they have in mind. There's this whole misnomer about like nonprofits and like, oh, they don't pay. No, not at all. I love working for nonprofit. In fact, I want to become a nonprofit creative person if I can. I don't know whether there's so much work, because these are women. They are so particular about getting everything, those the checklist. They have their own checklist. Okay,
yeah,
so everything is decided before you can ask. You have the list in front of you, so you know what you're expected to do. Um, I also love the cause. It's a bit like the brands, and I don't know. I was just telling somebody the other day, and I hope it doesn't come to bite me in the ass because that's my bread and butter. But I just don't want to do skin and hair, and I'm just a little. God, I love the work, but I'm just a little tired when you don't want to try something new. And that whole spin and grin and life is perfect, I want to stay away from. And the fact that non-profits in India, I am working with some people abroad, want to, it's like, again, working for, well, women's rights and children and education, sex workers. And I love that there are like so many brands out there. And I'm calling them brands because they're unexplored,
Yeah.
and they all could do with a voice, because while they have the funding and they have their facts and they have their data, what they don't have is, but how do you reach people out and get them on board? Because there is a non-profit language which is like wallpaper, and that, and I can make a difference, and I want to do that kind of work. Has really surprised me, because I found that you good work is good work irrespective, and the non-profit sector gives me that much joy because it's work which is genuinely doing good. I'm not creating woke advertising for the sake of, filling in some little blue tick in somebody's box. uh, they pay on time. Most clients don't. And again, like I said, the newness, it's like there are, like, would I do a campaign for sex workers ever in an agency? No. I mean, I would have to think of a award-winning idea to convince a client that we need to do an idea for sex workers. But this is all legit, and
Yeah.
it's about the rights of sex workers in another country, different context. But oh my God, is it new? I have to do so much homework to study about laws and digital rights, which I knew nothing about. So I feel I'm evolving much more
Hmm.
than I was when I was younger, because here I get to work with different kinds of brands and people, and the homework that I do really allows me to then get my mind to think in a different direction. And Nikhil, it's all connected. So something somebody might say in a absolute non-profit meeting about digital transparency might help me when I'm working on some skin solution with some other client, because that's the beauty of the creative mind. And uh, I love it when my worlds collide, because
Yeah.
everything in an agency is so compartmentalized, and suddenly I'm like, or I'm telling the non-profit guys, what we did when we were selling biscuits, and they were like, no, we don't care. And I'm like, oh, you have to listen because it might help you, because it's true. I
Mhm.
mean, finally, ideas do get people together, and and ideas can transcend boundaries. They can transcend. Now I've realized non-profit and FMCG and everything else. Earlier, you just heard about, ideas that transcend boundaries. I'm talking about ideas that lit from like sex worker rights to fucking, sorry, to like, shampoo. And it's okay. It's
Yeah.
fine, because as long as it makes sense and it comes together, it's a whole new, it's a whole new world out there. And I'm excited. And yeah, so that's the other bit of newness that is there for me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where the evolution takes you. But you touch on a lot of things that make a lot of sense to me and close to my heart, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons I became a planner or a
Yeah.
strategist, as they say, because
Yeah.
I love the fact that you can take something from selling a complex CRM solution and bring it to selling a diaper, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's connecting those dots that gets you to beautiful
Yes.
places, right? And unusual places, like you said, not the style, not the ones with the blinkers on, which
Yeah.
unfortunately a lot of agencies sort of,
Yeah.
by nature of the structure do. And also, I think we're at a stage in life, I think that was the other thing I realized, right? Where I don't want to go and work on Absolute or Levi. I don't really, care about that. It's not about working on sexy brands, or I'd rather solve a real problem, right? And do something that, like you said, like, and I love working with nonprofits too, but I don't do any unpaid work because that's, not a good
No,
idea to do.
absolutely.
And one of the biggest nonprofit leaders once told me that. He said, no matter what you do, always charge. That's really
Yeah. Yeah.
important for both sides of the equation,
We
right?
have amazing funding.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. There are lots of nonprofits that have really good funding.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you said, they pay before the invoice is even sent out. I love that too. Yeah, I know.
And a 50% advance. I'm like,
Yeah,
whoa. Like, you should be talking to my clients. Like,
We're going to, of course, now we're going to have a flood of people sending in bids after this podcast to
yeah.
nonprofit world.
But
But
I want to be. I want. You just said you want to be. You don't want to work on sexy brands. You feel like you want to do work which is
yeah, meaningful to
meaningful.
people. Yeah, and has
So
impact.
I so I want to be like, I want to do sexy work on meaningful brands.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that's what I want to do because yeah, that's what I want to do. I don't want to do because there is a certain narrative that meaningful brands do, and I'm a little tired of that. And yeah, so I want to add the sex back to nonprofit, because who says nonprofit can't be sexy? And
Nobody. Yep.
that's what I want to do, and that's what I want to bring to the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So, if you could offer one piece of advice to somebody wanting to start their solopreneur journey, what would you tell them? Wants to
Mm,
make the leap.
yeah. So no, no. One second. It's a very difficult question.
Is it?
Somebody who's wanting to but hasn't done it as yet.
Correct. They're sitting in the corporate world and they're like, scared or don't know if they can do it. What would you tell them? What's your message to them?
So my message would be jump right in. The great thing about this industry is you can always go back to doing that, but I don't think you can do pretty much the opposite. So you can't keep taking a break and doing your own thing and coming back and then doing your own thing. But if you're doing your own thing, you can always come back. I know that, and I still get calls from, what you're doing and give us one day, and these are like big agencies, and I'm like, no. So I would say, really try it. I mean, and really, so what if you fail? I mean, we failed on pretty much everything we've done. I mean, we're women, we're struggling with 1,000 things we fail at, and we're really lucky if we get that one breakthrough. So if this doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. It's just one more, on your shit failure list, which is fine. But we need to do it. And if you're inclined to do it, then honestly, nothing should stop you, because, like I keep saying, you can always go back. So
Yeah,
just
true.
jump right in.
Yeah, and I always say the net appears after you take the leap, right? I mean, you've just got to, and you're right. I'd rather wake up regretting something I've done than regretting not having done something
Yeah,
on my
absolutely.
deathbed. So I totally agree with you. So is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners that we haven't covered?
Um, yeah, I think for a lot of women who are out there listening to it, and I keep hearing this a lot, that uh, you know, uh, this little inner voice which tells you that it's not going to work. I think we need to figure out a global mass movement to shut it down, because no matter how successful we are, or she is, or you, no matter how well you're doing, there's every woman tells me that somewhere at the back it's like, am I really good enough, and am I really doing it the right way? And rather than spending hours trying to convince ourselves that, in therapy or not in therapy, that, you're right, you're actually great, I just wish we could shut up that voice, because I feel the male voice says, you're a rock star and you've got this and you can go and grab it. And the woman voice says that, are you sure you want to do it? Because most likely you're going to fail and it's not going to work and you're going to hate yourself. And I want to just change it. I want the woman voice to say, you've got this, and just go. And I want the male voice to say, hey, step back, let the women go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Well, you have my voice supporting that, and it's actually interesting. You said that you told me something else, which you just reminded me of, which is that women are hired on proof, men are hired on potential. So there is a lot more support for men out there, right? Saying, "Oh, you're good, you can do this, no matter what, how many times they fail." But for women, it's like, "Show me you've done it before, show me you've done it well, and then I'll give you the job."
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah,
this World Cup win. I
I
mean,
know it's amazing.
and more, it's the stories of, you've just been written off before they've even tried. You know what I'm saying? And shit, that's what I want to. That's what we should just like aim. That has to change, and hopefully that will change. Because don't, and for God's sake, we shouldn't be writing ourselves off.
No,
Unfortunately, a lot of us do it to ourselves. We've written ourselves off much before the world has.
but I think the societal structures also cause
Yeah,
that, right?
of
Yeah.
course.
So
And it's again, like I said, society and culture, and your country, and everything all it's so connected to, like, how you behave. And I'm very much aware that I am a minority in my country. The fact that, I can speak and I have a voice and I'm a certain person, and it's really about all those women, like I said, during COVID, who you knew were juggling and struggling with so much, but still turning up at work and willing to work with you, well, throughout the night if needed, because work mattered to them, and they loved what they did. And gosh, I'm rooting really for all those women.
I'm with you, and I'll root alongside you. So
Thank
that brings us to our rapid fire round. So I'm just going to throw five fun questions at you, and tell us what comes to mind. So pitch theatrics. What's the craziest thing you ever did to win a piece of business?
Oh, that's easy. When I picked for a tourism board, a tour company, I won't name the client. I went to Gateway of India and bought those horrible hats with those red ribbons, and because I thought that would like win us the pitch, and but I insisted the client team bought it as well, and the client was just really like stiff upper lip, like oh, what are you making me do, and I'm not going to wear this rubbish. And I said, we can't present if you don't. And we had a really awkward meeting, but 3 days later they called to tell us that you won the business, because nobody dared tell us that we had to, because I was like, we are selling you a holiday plan, so let's just feel a little like holiday people. And yeah, so that was crazy. It doesn't always work, but that worked for me. Yeah.
I love that. Back of the pack copy or 30-second TV spot, which is harder to write and why?
Oh my God, always back of pack copy, because the why, you've got a restriction on words. It's like a Twitter post. Don't get carried away. You only have 140 characters. You have a space limitation. You have font limitation because people need to read it. I think that's the toughest copywriting actually, because you need to talk about the product, the ingredients that it has, and sometimes with directions of how to use. So back of pack copy, tough any day.
I'm looking forward to reading your next batch. If you could send a one-line message to the cement block right now, what would it say?
Oh my God. So, what would I say to the cement block? I'd say like, we've got the bulldozers out, and we need some really like, whatever the dynamite substance is called. I forget what it's called. TD, what's it called? Like we need to blow up some shit. Yeah.
Which I gather you are doing, which is great.
Yeah.
So,
Attempting.
all right, complete this sentence. A year ago, I felt guilty about dash, but now I realize dash.
A year ago, I felt guilty about not trying too hard to get new business. And now I feel that the business I want will come to me, and I don't really need to like hunt it down.
Chase it. Yeah, no, that's a great realization. So, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear Indian advertising today?
Oxymoron.
Oxymoron. That's great. Well, that was great, Tista. Thank you so much for
Oh, I
this
so.
fun conversation. I had a lot of fun, and thank you for sharing your journey.
Oh, thank you. It was like wonderful, and I hope there are women out there who. I mean, I hope this all goes into something and make something out of somebody somewhere. And I mean, in between all the rubbish I've spoken. So thank you so very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. So, thank you. Here's what really stayed with me from Tista's story, and what I think you need to hear if you're building a solo business. First, the erosion of your voice doesn't happen overnight. It happens with every promotion. Tista was fearless at 25, calling out clients and refusing briefs on moral grounds. But as she climbed the ladder, she found herself biting her tongue more, not less. The irony? The higher she rose, the less freedom she had to say what she actually thought. If you've spent years in corporate, that voice doesn't just magically return when you go solo. You have to consciously reclaim it, because unclear communication now costs you clients, confidence, and positioning. And it starts with one practice: saying what you actually think to clients, in proposals, on discovery calls, without the corporate filter. Second, embrace the power of the gestation period. One of Tista's biggest revelations after going solo was the joy of thinking alone. Not in a conference room with 5 other people building on your half baked idea, not in a brainstorm with the pressures to say yes and move fast. but in that quiet space where you're wrestling with a problem, researching, thinking, letting ideas simmer. And this is something I see solopreneurs struggle with constantly. The guilt around not being productive every minute. But here's what most people miss: that thinking time, that research, that period when you're not producing anything visible. That's not downtime. That's where your differentiation lives. Because execution can be copied, but original thinking cannot. Third, become the annoying person and protect your margins in the process. When Tista went solo, she learned this the hard way. Vague scopes kill profitability. How many pieces of content? How many rounds of revisions? What happens in phase two? Ask every clarifying question up front, even when it feels uncomfortable. Most solopreneurs think this makes them look difficult. Wrong. It signals that you run a business, not a hobby. Every time you hear, we just need some social, or we'll figure it out as we go, slow down and get specific. Because every deliverable you don't clarify up front becomes free work later. Keep a checklist, be the annoying person. 3 months into the project, you'll be glad you did. Finally, stop writing yourself off before the world does. Tista said something that should make every woman listening sit up. Men are hired on potential, women are hired on proof. And if you're building a solo business, that dynamic doesn't disappear, it intensifies. But here's the truth for every solopreneur, regardless of gender. When you're building your own business, you're the only one who can give yourself permission to start. And you're also the only one standing in your own way. Tista's advice: you can always go back to a job. The corporate world isn't going anywhere. What you can't get back is the time you spent talking yourself out of trying. That inner voice that says, this probably won't work. You'll fail. You'll hate yourself. And that's not strategy. That's conditioning. And here's the flip side. Once you do prove it, once you've built credibility, client relationships, and a body of work through your solo business, it's yours. You own it. Nobody can take it away, reorganize it, or reassign it to someone else's team. No one can make you redundant or tell you your position has been eliminated. So if you're on the fence about going solo, ask yourself this: am I hesitating because the idea is bad, or because I'm waiting for permission that no solopreneur ever receives? So here's your action step for this week. If you're still in a corporate role and considering going solo, take 1 hour this week to calculate what I call your corporate tax. That's the real cost of staying. The ideas you're not pursuing, the client relationships that belong to your employer, and the late nights serving someone else's vision. Write it down, because once you see that number, not in dollars, but in opportunity cost, the decision gets a lot clearer. And if you're already solo but feeling scattered, create your annoying person checklist right now. List every single deliverable assumption you've been making: content pieces, revision rounds, timeline, usage rights, everything. Then use that checklist on your very next client call. That one conversation will either save you thousands in free work or help you raise your prices properly. Either way, you win. So that brings us to the end of Building Solo. 4 Indian women who rewrote the rules. 4 women, 4 different industries, but one unshakable truth running through every story: clarity and courage compound into authority. Oindrila reminded us that alignment isn't negotiable. Monisha showed us that creativity without commercial rigor is just expensive therapy. Rupa proved that purpose can drive revenue, but only if you give it time to build. And Tista, she gave us permission to reclaim our voice and think alone. So if you've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for the perfect moment, these 4 women just showed you it doesn't exist. The moment is now. The permission is yours to give. Thanks for listening to Unfiltered Solopreneur. If these 4 women showed you anything, it's that clarity isn't optional. It's the foundation everything else is built on. If your brand still feels scattered, or you're struggling to package your expertise so clients instantly get it, let's fix that. I'm offering free 30-minute brand clarity sessions, and after 4 weeks together, I think you'll know whether this conversation would be valuable. Book yours at clarity.boost.solo.com or through the link in the show notes. Until next time, keep breaking free from the corporate grind, and remember, your story is your most powerful asset. Live solo or die corporate.